Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final of 3 candidate forums. These voter information events are sponsored by the City of San Jose in conjunction with the Metro newspapers, KLIV Radio, and the Mercury News. In order of how the candidates will appear on your registrar or voter's ballot, we are joined tonight by Myron von Reisfeld, Eric Fong, Ruben Navarro, Devorah Davis, Helen Chapman, Norm Klein, Peter Allen, and Chris Roth. Please join me in a round of applause welcoming our candidates for the District 6 City Council. Tonight's host is Presentation High School, which provides an all-girls religious education established here in Willow Glen for over 50 years. Thank you, Presentation, for providing this 240-seat theater at no cost. All questions for tonight's voter information event and the prior 2 forums have been submitted by actual residents of District 6, not special interest groups or corporations. In addition, the questions are never shared with the candidates beforehand. We have received questions from residents of neighborhoods such as Buena Vista, Cahill Park, Canoas Gardens, College Park, Corey, Garden Alameda, Hamilton Place, Midtown, Newhall, Rose Garden, Rose Glen, Santana Row, Sherman Oaks, Shasta Hanchett, Palm Haven, Pamlar, and by far the most questions from Willow Glen. As an adjunct effort to the candidate forums, the District 6 Transparency Project is a written record of how participating candidates would vote on actual City Council agenda items. Nothing more definitive than a yes or no vote, as the City Council must do. To view the 58 votes over the past 7 months, go to sjdistrict6.com and click on Transparency Project, or for the audience, pick up a paper copy in the lobby. The guidelines for tonight's forum are modeled after the League of Women Voters. We rotate tonight's questions so all candidates have an opportunity to be first and last. Prior to the start, candidates drew numbers to see who would go first, and I believe number 1 is Helen, number 2 is Eric, and that will be for at the end. The candidates have, the candidates have 5 challenge cards, which they may use to rebut a specific candidate for 30 seconds. The named candidate must use their challenge card to respond, or they may simply choose to ignore. Challenge cards may be used all at once, or used one at a time, or not used at all. Timekeepers, please raise your hand. That's Philip. Candidates, please be sure to keep the timekeeper in your sight, as they will signal your time is nearly up or to stop. Due to the number of candidates on the stage tonight, answers will be 1 minute and less, otherwise noted by a moderator. For those 30-second challenge questions, because the timer is at 1 minute, your time's either going to end at 30 seconds or 0. We ask that no videotaping be done this evening by the audience, as the entire event is being filmed, and barring any technical difficulty, will be posted on the District 6 website and also shown on Create TV Channel 26. We agree with the League of Women Voters that it is unfair to use a snippet or a portion of a candidate forum without providing the entire background. You may view the video of the prior forums held on March 21st at Bellarmine and April 14th at Del Mar High School on the District 6 website. We ask that the audience please refrain from applauding or cheering for a candidate during the question and answer period so that we may be able to ask as many questions as possible. I'd like to introduce our co-moderator for the evening, journalist Julia Baum. They say the pen is mightier than the sword, but your local reporter / professional belly dancer wields both with equal skill. Julia came on board with the resident newspapers, part of the Bay Area news group Mercury News, last year as a community reporter for District 6. As a transplant from Sacramento, she brings an outsider's perspective to local political scene and is passionate about sharing resident stories. Thank you, Julia, for being here tonight and your contribution to local news coverage. Julia reviewed the questions and has selected which of those questions should be asked tonight. Without further ado, let's begin. Our first question comes from a representative of Presentation High School. Presentation is a landlocked school, and their student enrollment is capped by the city. Unlike public schools, which have no limits on enrollment or the construction of new buildings, Presentation must have the city approve every construction project like this theater that we are all enjoying tonight. Here's the question, there is an adjacent house next to Presentation that could be purchased by the school and its appearance vastly improved, which could provide offices for teachers. Would you support Presentation in this endeavor? And let's assume, as in all land use items, a vocal neighbor is strongly opposed since they do not want Presentation to expand their footprint. Starting with number 1.
Good evening. Helen Chapman. This question actually I know a little bit about because my husband works for Castellea School in Palo Alto, and they're having the same problem with the CUP and enrollment going higher. And so what they've done in terms to reduce traffic is to park off-site, have the employees park off-site and bike to work for the last mile. And they also have a house that they use for teacher housing, so I would think that presentation it would be of benefit to have teacher housing next to the school, and I would think that they would have the similar problems that Castellea is having, so yes.
And then going in that direction?
I would actually support that. I actually think I know which house it is. I was out walking this neighborhood over the weekend, and I ran into it, and the neighbor next door said that house is vacant, and presentation might be trying to buy it. So I'm familiar with the property. It makes perfect sense. It would be a good piece in addition to this lovely campus that we have, and I do think that we need to invest in our schools, both public and private. There's a lot to be done, and I absolutely would support the opportunities that would avail themselves to the city or to the school for that.
Hi, I'm Norm Klein, and I've been a planning commissioner for the last 4 or 5 years and had the privilege of actually approving several projects on this campus. And we've actually approved several extensions to the MIDI campus by buying, for them to buy houses across the street for administration purposes. Yes, you have to jump through some loops. You have to make sure it's mitigated. You have to make sure that the impacts on your neighbors is good. But generally, that can all be done. So I would be in favor of that.
Hi, everyone. Peter Allen. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, especially all the presentation students, some of you who can't vote yet, but I'm glad to see you're getting engaged in the process. Yes, as other candidates have said, I would be supportive of this project. I'd obviously need to see the specifics, what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, how traffic's going to be impacted in the neighborhood and parking as well, because I know that's a huge concern already of the neighbors around here. But yeah, if it's going to benefit the school, and if the property itself is currently somewhat blighted, I don't see why it wouldn't be a benefit to the community. And if there were residents who had a concern about it, I'd be happy to sit down with them and talk it out and see what we can do to get a win-win for all sides. So I'm very supportive of the school, very supportive of this kind of a project.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for you guys showing up today. As a graduate from Santa Clara University, I met many people that graduated from this institution. My daughter's godmother also graduated from here, and she happens to be here, and now she wants to follow in her footsteps and come here. But in regards to working together, the main reason I'm running is to make sure we get the community and everybody involved whenever the city or any project that's going to have any particular impact on the surrounding neighborhoods. The best thing to do is make sure there's open communication with all parties and make sure that everyone works together to come to a solution. But yes, I would definitely approve that. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Chris Roth here. Thanks again for coming tonight. I know it's a big sports night with the Warriors in the conference finals. It means a lot that you can be here. I'm sure a lot of you have DVRs set, and I will not announce the score. With regard to this question, this is a great establishment, Presentation High School. I have memories of attending water polo games here to cheer on my classmates when I was younger. I love the school. I am supportive of any expansion efforts that are agreed upon by most of the neighbors. I think it's great for the greater good of the school, and I would support that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deborah Davis, and I also thank you for coming tonight. I was pleased to speak with Presentation High School students a couple of months ago with their Student Political Action group, and I really enjoyed my time here at this school. I've also walked in the neighborhood, and my sense is that the only opposition to development on Presentation land or even next to Presentation would be the issue of parking. So I would say that it would be best to engage with the neighbors and figure out if that is indeed their only opposition and what the impact would be for this project, not knowing what the specifics of it are.
Good evening. My name is Eric Fong. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. There are a lot of city land use issues that make perfect sense if not for private property owners being in the way. So I would be open to it. I think it starts with a discussion. It starts with a discussion with the school and the community, understanding what the fears are and seeing how we can work together, seeing the best way to move forward, and making sure everybody understands where we gain from having teacher space for Presentation High School. So it starts with a discussion. I would happy to be a part of that.
Next question. The new property owner of Cambrian Plaza Shopping Center would like to convert part of the parcel into housing. However, the planning department would like it to remain all commercial since it is on the border with Los Gatos and would provide a stronger tax base. What is your view? Question inspired by Z from Cahill Park. Myron?
So we have a huge housing imbalance in our area, and we have to look at developments in an appropriate way depending upon where they're at. This is a site that may pose some good opportunities to do a nice quality mixed-use project that would give us the revenue and the tax bases that we need from the commercial side of things, as well as providing some quality housing for our residents, which is, again, something that we're desperately in need of. And unless we start looking at projects like that and in areas like that, it's going to be difficult to resolve the housing imbalance that we have. And we have more and more companies coming, so we got to find that way to balance that out. So I think this is, again, one of those sort of hypothetical questions. I haven't seen the actual proposal of what it is or how it would look and what the density is. I think those are all things that are important to look at, and also the involvement of the neighborhood and the surrounding community. So we need to look at that, but I, in general, would support looking at ways that we can provide housing as well as the tax revenue from commercial investment.
After 20 years of doing land use, City of Santa Clara, Saratoga, and San Jose, this is a big trend that's going across not only here, but the entire country, is how to retrofit these existing strip malls, how to turn them into downtowns. The pressure right now for San Jose is to do commercial, because they need the revenue to do the roads and police, and that makes a lot of sense. But there has to be a compromise there, too. We have a huge housing impact right now, housing of every single type, low income, middle income. I was at a meeting with a national accounting firm, and their biggest problem in San Jose is they can't find housing for their accountants, people who make $80,000 a year. So this housing crunch is there, and it's real. So I'd be in favor of looking at a mixed-use development here as long as it doesn't really impact the commercial revenue stream. There's ways of doing that. I've seen in other cities, including cities in this valley, and I'm sure we could do it here. So I'd be interested in looking at the mixed use.
Well, like both Norm and Myron, I also would favor a mixed-use development on that site. However, one thing we have to be concerned about is, as always, traffic and the impact from additional cars on the road. And it's going to happen in that area, frankly, because we don't have the transit infrastructure already in place. I'm a big fan of mixed-use development. I'm a big fan of sustainable, sensible infill development, but only where you already have or you're currently building the infrastructure that's going to be in place once the project is built to get people where they need to go so they're not having to get in their cars every single time when they take a car trip or take a trip at all. It is near a freeway, but it's near a very impacted freeway. So we really need to be cognizant of that and how many more cars we're putting on the road and in what areas. I think there are good spots for it. This may be a fantastic spot for a mixed-use development, but I need to see the specifics, and I really need to see a transit plan for the area as well.
I actually like this question because it kind of brings a lot of issues up. The whole reason I'm doing this grassroots campaign is to make sure that the communities are empowered, the neighborhoods are empowered, and we got to make sure that whatever development's going on or whatever projects or changes that the city or developers are doing to any land, we got to make sure the whole entire community is involved. But I would definitely support a land mixed use. But the housing that's being developed lately, and a lot of from the developers, isn't affordable housing. And what that's doing is putting pricing pressure on the low to medium housing. So we need to make sure, if we are going to go in a land mix use model, that the housing that's built is affordable for the people that are working in those retail chains. Thank you.
I'm generally not supportive of converting land use from commercial and retail to residential. I think it adversely affects the tax base of the city, and I think I only would support situations like that when there are when the financial impact, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, but I wanted to refresh. For this particular case, I would be open to seeing a mixed-use proposal. However, historically, I would not support commercial and residential. Sorry about that. Thanks.
Generally, I think that I agree with what the city council policy has been, which is not to rezone commercial or industrial land for housing. However, in some cases, when it is a location that's near transit, or if you can retain the number of jobs or expand the number of jobs on the site, then it might be a way where we could do some creative rezoning. In this particular case, I don't have enough information to actually make a determination. I would want to see in a staff report what the transit plan is, whether there will be adverse traffic impacts, and also what the number of jobs will be compared to the number of jobs that are on that site now at Cambrian Plaza, or at the peak of that development before it was revitalized.
I would be open to a discussion, and I think mixed use in some places is good. I think an entire city of mixed use looks bad, and I think where we need to start with is understanding the intention. I don't know that area is something that we want to develop to attract people from Los Gatos, but I think that people who move to Los Gatos want to stay in Los Gatos. I don't know if they're looking to come to San Jose. I don't know that they're looking to come to Cambrian Park. I also think that there's an opportunity to serve the neighbors there with something that they can walk to and enjoy without having to go too far, and that's the type of development to look for, things where we can establish restaurants and commercial and retail where the neighborhoods can enjoy. That's what gets cars off the street. So it starts with a discussion, but that's the type of thing that I would look for.
As one that lives near 3 urban villages, it really is the details of the project that matter, because if you don't have a transit plan and you don't have a plan on where you're going to put the cars, you will bring the cars to the project and you will get that overflow of cars going into the nearby neighborhoods. We're experiencing that now. So I am not a big fan of industrial land conversions. I think this spot commercial probably works best because there isn't a transit opportunity nearby. Again, you have a freeway and you have a lot of road congestion. I would want to see how it plays out, and I would want to talk to the community and to understand what their concerns are and what their needs are before I make any decision.
Okay, next question. Why is San Jose, this comes from David in Willow Glen, allowing contractors to build huge monster homes in Willow Glen? It's beginning to lose its charm. Do you support changing the existing rules that allow houses to be built up to 45% of the lot?
This is a good question. It's not about existing guidelines, because we have existing guidelines in Willow Glen. We have guidelines for flag lots. We have guidelines for monster homes. The problem is the guidelines are not being followed. I've been in Planning Commission for 4 or 5 years now, and I've seen literally the system being gamed by developers get around these guidelines. And the Planning Commission, Planning Director has not really followed through in enforcing the guidelines. Before we look at making the guidelines more severe, we should follow the ones that are existingly there. I'm talking about guidelines that says you need a certain setback of your garage. I've seen garages basically angled at 35 degrees just to get extra 2 or 3 feet into the garage. That type of gaming doesn't appear in other cities. Other cities simply don't allow it. Other cities are much better actually enforcing this. And one of the things other cities do is it lets the Planning Commission handle a lot of this that's going through the directors right now, the director hearings right now. And I think we have to get back to letting the Planning Commission be a Planning Commission and let them review a lot of things that's going through the director's hearing right now. So let's the people review these in a more effective way.
Thank you. But to be clear, is 45% the acceptable number of the lot?
45% is too high to me.
Well, I would agree with Norm in that what we need from a city council and from a planning commission, frankly, are good stewards, people who understand the history of our community, who understand where we need to be, and can find a bridge between the two so that we're not impacting our neighborhoods, we're not impacting the character of our neighborhoods. I'm proud to have been born and raised in Willow Glen and still live a block away from Lincoln in Minnesota. I have a house just like we're talking about coming in right down the street from my house, another one down the street from that, and another one down the street from that. And the character of my community is definitely being impacted. So I would definitely be interested in looking into the regulations as they exist now. I agree 45% is too high. We need to look at something lower. And I would even ask the property owner what kind of value you're getting out of a property that has no yard and has no space. What kind of, if you need a big house supposedly for your kids and your family, where are these kids going to play? Because we already covered that we're pretty park deficient in this neighborhood, in this district. So I would ask the property owners to be a little more sensible about what they're building too. But since you can't do that, let's look into the regulations and make sure we're following the regulations that are on the books, as Norm said.
Hi. As I've been walking a lot of these neighborhoods, I've really been able to appreciate all the old architecture. I mean, I've seen some very beautiful old houses. But yeah, and then right next to them is a giant McMansion, and it kind of just throws you off because it just doesn't fit. But I think what we do have to do is make sure that if they are going to be going past 45% or at that level, to make sure it isn't a big eyesore in itself. Again, making sure the community is involved. I mean, even helping people create a second unit, like an in-law quarters. I think the whole community needs to get involved and make sure that we measure the impact to the community. Does the community lose its charm? But yeah, I would definitely am for more regulation of this kind of stuff. But we don't want to obtrude on the property rights of the owners to make sure. So I think we all can meet in the middle and make sure that one, we keep the charm of the community, and two, we make it fit where everybody wins. Thank you.
For the last many months, I've been knocking on thousands of doors, talking to thousands of voters, hearing their concerns. I've seen this problem, seen it happen on El Rio, seen it happen on Lupton, talked to some folks on Marquez. This is a big issue. I think 45% is too high to be open to modifying those guidelines. There's some serious issues when you have a 1,400 square foot single family home that's bulldozed, and then a new 4,000 square foot home is built that is extremely tall. It takes away shade, takes away cherished sunsets that neighbor next door used to experience. So I've heard so many stories. I'm concerned about how it changes and alters the character of the neighborhoods, and I'd be open to modifying the guidelines to make sure that our neighborhoods are preserved.
I'm not sure whether 45% footprint actually gets at the real issues. What I've heard from many residents about this issue is not so much how big the houses are in terms of how close they are to the next house, but more about sight lines and shade, especially shade over pre-existing solar panels from second stories put onto new homes in neighborhoods that have only single-story dwellings. So I'm not sure that the 45% footprint actually gets at the real issue that people are having. And what I really think is that there are too many waivers happening right now for the guidelines that already exist, and there is not enough involvement of neighbors and information going into neighbors in advance of these projects. So I really think that there needs to be more community involvement and more discussion about what the right design guidelines are as opposed to a percentage of the footprint.
Yes, I would be open to changing and enforcing the 45% number to lower it. In addition to homes like this changing the character of the street, it also changes the market and the prices out a lot of young families that would otherwise love an opportunity to buy an old fixer-upper. So as a young family that owns a home in Willow Glen and struggle to make the market, I totally understand. Guidelines will only get you so far. Again, it's the enforcement, and it's also understanding where there are loopholes, unintended results that come up based on the guidelines that we set, and being able to change them while also creating a predictable market, because we don't want to keep changing guidelines on developers so that they can't even build something. So it is a very tough decision, but there are economic things to look at, there are aesthetic things to look at. It's a complicated thing, but I would be supportive of lowering that 45% number.
This is an issue with Willow Glen, I think, that happened about 15 years ago under Ken Yeager's reign when there was a monster home ordinance put in place. Again, it's the enforcement of the guidelines, and it's also the participation of the neighbors and the property owners at the time. Many of these policy decisions are made at 9 o'clock in the morning at planning director hearings. Most of us work at that time, and so we're not involved in seeing what these changes take place. That's a concern to me. 45 is too high. And I think that we need to look at maybe possibly a historic overlay in some neighborhoods. We are a city of great neighborhoods, and we have opportunities to look at some of those and cherish those areas and make them attractive for people to come and look at. I mean, look at the city of Pasadena. You look at those homes and you go, wow, I really want to go walk down that street. This is great. So why don't we do this with some of our neighborhoods again? Why do we want to tear down history and replace it?
It's a good question. I don't think that the 45% is the issue. I agree with Dev. Lot coverage is attainable in many different ways. We have a lot of planned development units that have, 70 or 80% lot coverage because it's the way that they build and get the number of units they need in certain projects. But it really has to do more with the aesthetics and how developments fit in with the neighborhood And that's really what the Planning Commission and our planners should be doing. They should be looking at at all angles of a development, whether it's a house or whatnot, and really determine how this best fits in with that neighborhood to try to keep with that integrity of that neighborhood. You could have a single family home that takes up 45% but not know it from looking at the front of the house. So it's not, I think the lot coverage is not the real issue. And I think by attacking that or lowering that, we might find that we get a worse product with many things and really begin to restrict our homeowners who might need to add on a bedroom or a bathroom and those types of things. So I'm not sure lot coverage is the right way to go. I think we need to look at it more from an aesthetic perspective.
Where does responsiveness rank in your priorities? And if elected, how do you intend to manifest that responsiveness with your constituents? Would that include personally answering your email 7 days a week?
Submitted by Pierluigi in Willow Glen.
Actually, Lee.
Lee lives
Good
on
guess.
Britain.
Well, one thing I admire about Councilmember Oliverio is his responsiveness. While we may disagree on a number of policy positions, I do respect the fact that he is very responsive on email. He is very good about getting back to folks. Since you're not applauding for me. And that being said,
I just want to say that's great because my girlfriend is here and my father, so who I often break conversation. So.
That being said, as much as my fiance hates it, I am one of the more responsive people I know. I have been known to return emails after midnight. I don't guarantee that I'll be able to do that for each and every one of you because, as you probably know, we have 100,000 residents in this district, and I want to be as responsive as I can to every single one of you. However, if you do need to reach out to me, even now during the campaign, I'd be happy to hear from you. If you got a flyer for me on the way in, you have my cell phone number, but you can always email me at peter4sanjose.com. or peter@peterforsanjose.com. And you can also find me on Twitter @peterforsanjose. And I'm also on Snapchat now, actually, thanks to my fantastic intern from Presentation, Anna. So please look for me out there. I want to reach out to everyone in any way I possibly can because we need to involve everyone in the conversation. Thanks.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the characteristics that I admire about a current councilman. But you know, one thing that a lot of people keep asking me, if I do get elected, am I still going to be coaching soccer? So the answer is yes. So if I am in a middle game, it's going to be hard to respond back. But yeah, I've always been very responsive to people. You know, even if people on those Facebook groups, if my name gets thrown out there, I do not hesitate to reply back. You know, I'm straightforward. I'm not afraid to offend anybody, and that's who I am. And the best thing is I want to get people involved. I want to be able to create more representation. I want to be able to make this district a little bit more democratic to make sure that not only am I hearing your voice, but so is City Hall, so are other neighborhoods. So if an issue ever does come up, not only do you have the support of me, but you have the support of neighboring neighborhoods and the support of City Council. Thank you.
You all have had the opportunity to have Councilmember Oliverio represent you for nearly 10 years, so there are some big shoes to fill, especially on the responsiveness front. I intend to be an extremely responsive and accessible council member. I am already fielding dozens of questions of people calling, you know, where do you stand on this issue? How do you feel about this? I try to be as responsive as possible. It'll be a top priority. My personal cell phone is 408-499-0025. Thousands of residents already have it in their mail. They know it, and I've already been answering any question anyone has. I expect you all to be my eyes and ears as council member. I want to hear what's going on your street. I want to hear how we can make things better.
I agree, Pierluigi is fantastic with responsiveness, and I've heard that even from residents who say, you know, I don't like Pierluigi that much, but he does get back to you. Of course, it's important to the District 6 residents to maintain that level of responsiveness, so of course that will be my priority as well. However, I would like to point out that it's also important to be proactive, and I think the great thing about being so connected to the community as Pierluigi is that he can be proactive in solving issues that have come up in ones and twos, but seeing that it's going to be a general pattern and being able to proactively solve things before people even get to you. And I think that's important too.
Maintaining a high quality of life through rapid response to constituent services is actually the #1 thing on my list. That's the thing that Pierluigi Oliverio does so well, as everyone here knows. I think the first time I emailed him was around Sunday, 7 o'clock, and he got back to me within the hour. That's what I do in the private sector as well. As a manager in the tech industry, I respond quickly. There are bugs that can be addressed quickly, and so that's my part, and I won't always have the answer immediately, but I think it's important to get back to you and say, I'm working on it, let me get back to you, and constantly follow up. I actually prefer face-to-face over email, and I've had a tremendous amount of coffee over the last 2 or 3 years with many of the residents who live here and heard their concerns. So I would love to have coffee with any of you. I actually set up a coffee with a resident after last week's forum. So just let me know, and we can set up some time. That's the best part of this job, is connecting with all of you.
I greatly admire the council member's responsiveness and the goal that he has set for the rest of us. Yes. My kids have told me for a very long time that they think my extended family is District 6 because I have been volunteering in my neighborhood for over 25 years. So I have been doing this. I have been connecting people and doing virtual introductions and trying to connect people with issues that maybe could get resolved before it does go to the council member level. And so I will keep doing that no matter if I'm elected or not. That's in my blood. I love customer service, and I would plan to take that as far as I can. Thank you.
I too agree that Pierluigi set the bar so high that I think it's going to be very hard for any of us to meet that. I've actually emailed him at 2 and 2:30 in the morning, and I got a response back within 5 minutes. So I don't think he sleeps. But and I thought for sure I wouldn't get a response. I ended up staying till 3 responding back to him. So I want to go to bed. I will tell you that I will probably not respond to you at 2 o'clock in the morning. But I will get back to you. It is important for any of your representatives here or any of your council members to really listen to and respond back to the constituents. Like Eric, I think that face-to-face meetings or on the phone are sometimes the best way to really get it out. Sometimes email misconstrues things, or emotions can sometimes be interpreted in the wrong way. So I would prefer to do a phone conversation or face-to-face, but email and whatever really is the best and easiest method for my constituents is what we'll do, and definitely we'll be getting back to you.
Not all the people have the talent that Pierluigi has, but I'm going to take another tack at this. I started out in business as a customer service rep, and then I graduated into technology, and I've combined those skills over the years. My company automates 4,000 libraries all around the world, 50 states and 40 countries, and we do it with 6 employees. That means we respond, and librarians are the best customers in the world. They really want great service, and we provide it. We do that by feedback. I want District 6 to be the example in the city of how to go about tracking complaints and cases. So many complaints in the city are about, we don't know what's going on, it's too slow. We should have a portal that you can see where your problem is, you can track it, who has it, what's the resolution of it. Yes, it should be phone calls, but it also should be in a portal that you can actually see it's going to be resolved. And you can call me anytime, I'm available. Librarians know that.
Good luck following that act. Low-income housing is exempt from paying property tax and the full amount of park fees. These exemptions have resulted in over $100 million of lost revenue for San Jose. Please provide your perspective, and do you support these exemptions, yes or no? From Susan from Buena Vista. I believe you start
With me, right?
with, yeah, you.
Okay. So we have a housing imbalance. I've been talking to a lot of people, and they say, I don't know what to do. I mean, I'm working just to pay rent, and that's it. Both her, it's a common theme that I'm hearing. So whatever we got to do to increase the housing market, we got to figure out, also with jobs. But if we're giving away a lot of future tax revenue, and then we got to figure out exactly how to do it. There's a lot of other cities that have the same property values as we do and same jobs, but they don't have a housing crisis the way we do. And the reason is they focus a lot on building lower to middle income housing. Everything that you see now, everything that a lot of people are supporting is all these multi-use buildings, and none of it is affordable. I mean, I even got invited to check it out one on Saturday. The rent costs more than my mortgage. So I am in favor of figuring out how to create incentives for this, but it can't be, if it's owned by a private entity, then we should put a time stamp on that.
Time up.
Make sure.
Low-income housing and affordable housing is extremely important for our city. We're in the middle of a crisis. We need to increase the number of units of affordable housing. The city of San Jose has set an ambitious goal to build 21,000 units of affordable housing units by 2022. That would require us to build 2,400 units per year. However, over the last 2 years, we were only able to break ground on 576 units. So we have a lot of catching up to do. I don't think we need to insert additional obstacles to this process. So I do support these current exemptions. It's already hard enough to get it built. People need that. People very much need more housing, more affordable options in this high cost of living region. So I do support these exemptions.
From what I understand, a lot of the low-income housing is subsidized by the city, so having exemptions for property tax and park fees is sort of like saying that the city is exempted from paying itself. So I don't think there is a lot of lost revenue that we're actually experiencing because of that, because the way that the city actually subsidizes a lot of low-income housing through community development block grants and other federal funding. So I don't think that it makes sense to, as others have stated, put up more barriers to building more housing. We absolutely need more housing in the city, and low-income housing has to be part of that solution. So I think changing from what we already have probably doesn't make sense, since we don't have enough housing as it is.
My mother lives in affordable housing in District 6, and if not for affordable housing, she wouldn't be able to live probably within 50 miles of me. So affordable housing is important to me. We need more housing, and I think one thing to recognize is developers are an important partner in getting more housing, the right kind of housing, but developers aren't in it just to build housing. They're in it to make money, and affordable housing doesn't give them the ecosystem that they need in order to build and make enough money so that they can build another one, because we need them to be able to keep building because they're partners with us in creating more housing. So the math needs to work out. As far as property taxes and park fees, I think we can look at different ways where we can make that math work out. I'm not tied to property taxes or park fees. We just need to look at the math because it needs to work out for the developers. Otherwise, we're not going to have big investors to help build the housing that we need.
A bulk of the property taxes paid by or not paid by affordable housing actually don't go to the city. They go to the schools, and that's who we're hurting the most from not paying the property taxes. Sales taxes, on the other hand, go to the city. I was proud when I worked on the San Jose Park Commission that we actually brought forward the 50% park fees so that affordable housing could have parks, because those are projects that really do need access to open space and access to play. And we have one in my neighborhood, which you wouldn't even know it's an affordable housing project, and kids of all ages play there together and all income levels, so I think that's wonderful. I'm an affordable housing advocate because both my kids still live with me, and one of them is a Marine vet, and I would really like to see him stay close to home.
This is a massive problem for our community, and unfortunately San Jose is carrying the burden to provide the housing for their workers in every other city. And this is really more of a regional issue, although we've been really working on it ourselves. And if you look at San Jose compared to the other cities of what they're providing in affordable housing, they're almost at zero. I mean, not exactly, but some of them are at zero, actually. And in that case, you know, here we are carrying the bucket of water and losing out on the revenue, and we wonder why. We can't hire our cops, wonder why our roads are falling apart, wonder why our parks are horrible. Is because we're carrying the burden. And we need to really get our council to start focusing on more of a regional perspective. And we need to find a way to get monies coming back to this city for us providing the workers for all of the other cities. Santa Clara, for example, has a 2.73 to jobs ratio. And it's unacceptable that we have a 0.83 when they got all the jobs. So they're coming from us, going to there. We need to find a way to balance that out. And I would look at something like that.
Let me get back to the question, should low-cost housing be exempt from parking fees? The answer should be no, and this is the reason. Even though it might be coming from city funds, it's from a different fund. You take money from a Fund A, you move it to Fund B, that money from B has to be for parks. Parks are very, very important. They're very important for low-income housing, especially. I grew up in a low-income environment. My family was homeless for certain parts of my very early childhood. Very, very critical. We have a massive low-income housing problem. It's not going to be solved by the city. We can help, but it's mostly a county issue. County get most of the funding for it. Has to do redevelopment agency lost a huge chunk of their money. County lost a huge chunk of money because redevelopment went away. we have to replace that money. That's a huge, huge part of this problem. It won't be fixed by city, but we can help by providing some affordable housing units for the very, very, very low housing crisis people. And this is something we're going to continue to talk about.
Really quick, I see a lot of folks standing in the wings. Maybe folks could do the whole, like in the movie theater, shift to the center and let folks come in and grab a seat if you want to. But this, yes, as candidates have said already, this is a regional issue, but San Jose hasn't been pulling our own weight. In fact, if you look at the numbers, we're doing really well on producing market rate housing. We're doing god-awfully on producing low-income and extremely low-income housing. And I believe it does need to be incentivized in some way, whether or not it's using parks fees and property tax exemptions to do that, I think is open to discussion. However, I will point out in terms of the $100 million worth of lost revenue, a county-wide study showed that we spend as a county $500 million per year, that's $500 million per year, on services to our unhoused neighbors. We need to get a handle on this situation now. We have a moral and a fiscal imperative to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to live and work and play in San Jose. And until we actually all come together and all sit down at the table to work this out, we're not going to solve it. It's a very complex problem, but I think we can all find solutions. We're a really innovative community.
This one's from Susan as well, and this was part of a nice 30-minute discussion on both questions. So this one is, city planners and environmental groups advocate for lower parking ratios on new commercial and residential developments as a way to dissuade the automobile. However, as a resident, these new developments have an impact on my neighborhood. Do you agree with the existing parking ratios, or should these ratios be changed to require more parking?
I'm supportive of making sure these ratios, I'm supportive of lower parking ratios for developments that are near transit hubs, near whether it's light rail, near Caltrain. I do think that, as a city, we need to be better in planning and moving forward to make sure that we lessen our dependence on the vehicle, on the car. You see in the traffic congestion, it's already at a very, very high level that is not well tolerated by so many different commuters. I'm supportive of making sure that these futuristic developments can focus on being closer to transit, and I'm supportive of the current ratios, but I'm open to certain specific projects where parking is not required due to the proximity to, say, Diridon Station in District 6.
Those of you who know me know I am a data and research nerd. So I've actually seen some research on this. And what the research says is that if you lower the parking ratios, you actually get fewer cars on the road. So that sounds like a good thing to me. However, I would say that none of those studies were done in Santa Clara County, where we have VTA now talking about declining ridership and wanting to eliminate bus routes. So I would agree that we could probably keep the parking ratios as they are, especially in areas where there is transit. And if we're going to have low parking ratios, then we need to make sure that our transit is better able to move people from where they are to where they need to go.
I think it depends on the area, and if you're looking at an area like walking around in the Rose Garden where there really is no street parking in a lot of the streets where I've walked around, maybe that's not the right place to develop. I think maybe we can focus in downtown where we've wanted density for decades, where we have transit, where we have over 200 restaurants, and maybe we focus in that area. I talked to somebody who grew up in Hong Kong and is in commercial development, and I asked him about the guidelines here in the general plan. I said, how does this work for you? And he said, I don't understand why you have parking ratios. And he talked about growing up in Hong Kong, and he said that those buildings, those developments never had parking ratios because they had an excellent transportation system. So I think what it really comes down to is investing in transportation and making sure that we develop in all the right areas where we have that transportation and the infrastructure to support a growth of people.
The issue isn't really about acceptable parking ratio, it's about good quality public transportation. I've been saying for the last few debates that what I really would like to see is a shuttle service from downtown to Santana Row and perhaps on to De Anza, and use the money that developers have been paying in the Midtown area for a future light rail station, which we don't know if is ever going to come. Maybe use that for the shuttle service, and let's get some cars off the road now. But we aren't working. Our public transportation system, I'm sorry to say, sucks. I mean, how many of you use it? And certainly, we need to do better. And I think, you can lower the parking ratios, you can do that, but we have to address what the elephant in the room is, and that's our public transportation.
That's all well and good, but the public transportation isn't working and it's not being utilized to the way that it should be. And as a result, we have a lot of people with a lot of cars. And I don't see any time in the next 10 years, which is probably how long it would take us to really revitalize our public transportation system to really meet the needs of what many of my constituents up here are talking about. We have a real issue. I've been walking through some of these neighborhoods where some of these developments are built, and they certainly did not have the proper ratio, and people have more than 1 or 2 cars, and they're parking way out into neighborhoods and causing a lot of problems and angst for a lot of the other residents. And so, yes, we should be looking at a development, we should be looking at all sides of that, and we should be looking at potentially increasing the required number of parking spaces so that we don't end up with these disputes between neighbors and start tearing our neighborhoods and our neighbors apart. So I get the public transportation. It's not happening today. It won't happen tomorrow. It may happen in years from now, but we're nowhere near there yet.
I voted against 2 high-density developments here in the Willow Glen area on the Almaden Road and on Kirtner, where they had 4 or 5-story developments, high density. The parking ratio is 2 bedrooms, 1.5 cars. Literally, that was too low. We knew going into it. There was no public transit around it. There was no urban villages around it. But because of the rules, the Planning Commission wanted to approve it. A director wanted to approve it. I voted against it. They got approved, unfortunately. Those neighborhoods are going to be impacted by spillover of cars in the neighborhoods. That has to be changed and raised. Millennials might be not using his cars as much, but they do have cars in their garages. I have 2 young sons. They both have cars. They both are in high density, but they need parking spaces. So we have to look at that. It really is location specific. Downtown San Jose, different question. Around transit corridors, yeah, you can go with a lower ratio. But in R1 zone areas, that's a disaster going to happen, and it's happening over and over again, and the city has to be a lot more sensitive about it.
Oh, time up.
Well, I think it's really important to note that these new parking ratios we're seeing that are lower in higher density units are not there to dissuade anyone from taking their car. They're actually responding to what we're seeing from 2 very large segments of the population that are going to account for most of the growth that we're going to see over the next 30 years in San Jose and Santa Clara County. And I'm talking about seniors, and I'm talking about millennials, as Norm mentioned, both of whom have been found through surveys and studies and data to not want cars as much, to want to be able to be more mobile in terms of walking, car sharing, Uber, public transit. But as many candidates have already pointed out, we are in a situation now where our public transit system is not getting people from where it needs to go to from where they are to where they need to go. It's not working for folks, and especially in areas, as Norm mentioned, on Almaden Road. I was walking on Creek Drive the other day talking to residents, and I heard a lot of folks that were really concerned about people parking in their neighborhoods, about the developments coming in an area with very limited transit options. So we need to be very thoughtful about each one of these projects. The Planning Commission and the Council need to be thoughtful on a project-by-project basis. I do think we can have lower ratios, but it has to be in the right spot.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everybody. It's all about location. But at the same time, a lot of people, especially the homeowners that are impacted, is that they believe that the people in authority are trying to social engineer people to not use their cars. But our transportation isn't that great. Our jobs are very far away. I live near the light rail station, and it would literally drop me off in front of my job. It would take me over an hour and a half when I could just get in my car. Take advantage of the carpool lane and be there in 25 minutes. There's no way that I'm ever going to take public transportation. So we got to be smart, but we got to work with everybody. We got to make sure and not ignore the community. A lot of these developments will ignore the community. There's a development off of Tamian, and it's everybody that's there is saying it's going to bring more cars. Everyone say no, the new residents aren't going to be driving that many cars, and that's false. It's going to impact the community, and that is why it's very important that we empower our communities, make sure everybody is involved, because we can't stand letting these developments come through and our community not have a voice.
This is what are we calling this, the lightning round?
We have 2 lightning rounds.
2 lightning rounds, okay. Very basic. Answer yes or no. One word. Okay? We are going to start with Chris. Dev. Do you support the proposed 7-Eleven at the corner of Bascom and Stevens Creek? Yes or no?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
It depends.
Yes.
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 All right. Do you support Measure B, the quarter-cent sales tax increase on the June ballot? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 No.
And finally, do you support Measure C, which would allow more locations for medical cannabis on the June ballot? Yes or no?
No.
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 And if that wins, we'll all be shocked. Our next question is from another David, and he says, in Willow Glen, of course, would you vote to sue the state of California to force an underground option for high-speed rail, which would delay the project and possibly have the state consider a non-San Jose option like the Altamont Pass to Oakland? And that starts with...
Me? Well, I'm one that does not like lawsuits at all for any reason unless you really have to. But this light rail is a real albatross for this state and for our area. In fact, recently we've seen there's this new system coming out that's privately funded, privately run, called the Hyperloop, which many of you probably saw the test of that. And I have a fear that what's likely going to happen when they finish this rail, it's going to be obsolete anyway, with technology and things that are moving forward. So yes, in many regards, I would actually like to stop that train in any way possible. And although I am not a big proponent of lawsuits, so I'd really like to find some other ways to work around that. And I certainly, if the state's going to want to put that in there, then they need to do the overpasses or the underpasses and allow us to keep our roads. I think that was a promise that somehow didn't get made in the election process. And again, it's another one of those things where we pass something without really being told the truth of what it was. And I think we've been sold a bill of goods.
I have 20 years of land use experience, and I know you don't have to sue. High-speed rail actually needs San Jose desperately. There's an enormous number of land use decisions that San Jose has to make in favor of high-speed rail, or it can't come through. This is called bargaining. Example of this is Saratoga in 85. When 85 went through, San Jose was one of the first cities to go, yippee, 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 85, and Saratoga was the last city. Who got the underground? Who got the trench? Who got the soccer fields? Who got the fields? Who got all the niceties? Saratoga did, because they bargained, they lasted them out, and they waited. They did really good land use there. And what did San Jose get? 85 above ground, noisy, huge, huge concrete pillars. We can negotiate with high-speed rail. We don't have to sue them, and we can say it's not going to come through here until we have ownership of the design, and we want to make sure it mitigates. And there's quite a few different ways of doing it, including underground, that system. And you need experienced land use people who can actually do that and bargain well.
Well, I'm in favor of high-speed rail in general. I think it's going to be the spine of our transportation system in our state. I think we're way behind the rest of the world in terms of developing this type of transportation, and so I think we need to get on it now, sooner than later. However, I completely agree with Norm. There is no need to go to the lawsuit, to go to the mattresses over this. We can, however, play hardball, and it's something that the city of San Jose does not really do very well. We tend to poke a little bit, and then we sue. I think we really need to be thoughtful in how we approach this. We can leverage the fact that we are the 10th largest city in the country, the 3rd largest in California. If high-speed rail didn't come through San Jose, where they can have a fantastic hub at Diridon Station, they would be remiss, they would be losing money, they would be in trouble. So I think we can hold this over them. We can get what we want, whether it's underground, trenched, or something that's aesthetically and environmentally pleasing for the neighborhoods and something that can be compatible with the neighborhoods. We need to do that, and we need to push and involve everyone in the conversation, and everyone here needs to step up to do that.
First of all, I'd like to state that I'm definitely in favor of the speed rail. But what this question kind of brings to issue is not whether we are going to be able to sue to get what we want, but more, is the government going to overstep on the community, right? What's the true definition of our democracy where where sometimes we feel powerless. To me, this question means that I lost all hope. Maybe I'll sue to see if someone could hear me. And this is why I decided to run with zero money, zero funds, and just to make sure that every single one of you has a voice. So to me, if this person needs to sue to get the attention of the federal government or the transportation agency, well then do it. I'm in favor of speed rail, but we all need a voice. We need to make sure that the government is really working for us since we're paying their salary with all the taxes that we get hit with. Thank you.
I do not believe we should sue the state of California. Unlike one of my opponents who's up here, I do not believe in taking the course of taking legal action against governmental entities to get what I want. I am very supportive of high-speed rail. I took the high-speed rail from London to Paris a few years ago, and it was an amazing experience, and it really made me realize how behind the times, as Peter referred to earlier, that California is and our country is, and this would be an amazing project. Not only to open up the whole state to Silicon Valley and vice versa, but you'll be able to have a business meeting in LA and still get back in time to cook dinner for your kids with a 2.5-hour little trip down to on the high-speed rail. It also opened up affordable housing opportunities for those who are outside of Silicon Valley who need to work here and come here for the day. So I'm supportive of high-speed rail. I do not believe that we should sue California. I think there are many steps we can take before it even gets to that point.
I'm not even sure that a tunnel is actually the right thing for San Jose. The problem with the tunnel is that you can't put anything above it. So the Diridon Station area, which could be used for high-rise developments of either residential and or commercial, would mean that it wouldn't be possible to have that if we had a tunnel for high-speed rail, or the tunnel would have to go very, very deep, and it would be prohibitively expensive. So I don't think that the tunnel is necessarily the right idea. Therefore, I don't think we should be suing to get a tunnel. I do think we should be negotiating and make sure that we don't have high-speed rail going through the neighborhoods, especially North Willow Glen, which is what it is planned to do, and which is where I live, and have heard from many, many neighbors who live even nearer to the train tracks than I do that would be a terrible idea. And I would rather see the money for high-speed rail spent on improving commute times, because most people want to save 2 hours every single day rather than 4 hours
Time's up.
once a year.
Oops, sorry.
Politics is about relationships, and I would lead with a collaborative spirit, as I've done in the private sector, as I've done in the community. Even if we did sue, and even if we did win, we would have to work with these entities the next day, and that damages the relationship. And I think we need to lead with understanding what's in everybody's best interest, where we can trade off, and frankly, going underground for high-speed rail is important in keeping fast times, and also so we don't have to have everyone who's in cars stop to see this train go by, as we do with light rail. It's going to make things easier to get from point A to point B without interrupting existing traffic. It's going to make high-speed rail much faster. So I would be open to collaboration. Would not lead with a lawsuit.
Actually, we wouldn't be the first ones to do a lawsuit. I believe many cities along the peninsula have already done lawsuits with high-speed rail, and then in Southern California. So I was on the Diridon Good Neighbor Committee and spent many long hours looking at high-speed rail and advocating for an underground option, and was told we couldn't do it. But then, yet again, we can do it for BART. So it never made sense to me why we could do one for BART and we couldn't do it for high-speed rail. So I still think the city of San Jose needs to stand strong. We need to be firm. We need to make sure whatever comes in terms of a high-speed rail station looks good, works with the community, serves the multitude, and doesn't put an infrastructure burden on the city of San Jose. That's why we advocated to make sure that the city participated in the business plan to make sure that San Jose would not be on the hook financially for this.
What is your plan to manage the growing number of homeless people living on the streets in and near our neighborhood? My daughter was mugged by a transient on the Alameda on Christmas Day. My concern for the safety of my family has overtaken my very liberal-leaning concerns for the homeless. What will you do to find a solution for these folks so that they are not living on the streets of our neighborhood? This comes from Megan in the Shasta-Hanchett neighborhood. And I believe we're starting with...
Thank you for the question. There's about 4,000 homeless in San Jose. About 1,500 are actually on the streets. The other 3,500 are in temporary housing, one sort or the other. If you put the 1,500 into a concentration camp or a shanty town, there'll still be 4,000 people homeless. It doesn't fix the problem. The 1,500 that we're really concerned about, the best practices that we saw in New York in the 90s and Chicago later on is find permanent, low-cost, affordable housing, usually single residency occupation. The issue of that is money. What the solution is, you're going to need money to do this. Redevelopment agency used to provide that money. It disappeared. We've got to find a revenue stream, no matter what the solution is. San Jose is not the primary solvent here. It's the county, but we've got to do our part. The current city council seems to be going down the right path of finding permanent residences, partnering with nonprofits and putting these people in housing first so they can get services. That's what the experts say. I tend to agree with them. That's what's worked in the past in large cities. We do need a revenue stream in addition to that.
And time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I agree with Norm. This is a regional issue, and we do need to approach it regionally. But San Jose has more than a few things we can do. The council and dedicated housing staff, the understaffed housing staff, are already working on a number of solutions. Unfortunately, we've started too late. We knew there was a crisis coming during the recession. We saw it growing, and now we're trying to do something about a problem that we could have been solving years ago. So I am in favor of a number of proposals that are coming forward from the council in terms of transitional housing, single residence occupancy, like Norm mentioned, transitional units, micro housing, and even sanctioned encampments, not in the level that some of my opponents are proposing, but areas where folks can at least have a safe place to shower, to cook, to get a roof over their heads, to have an address, and to begin to get back into the swing of life. But one thing I really want to stress is that we cannot continue to equate poverty and homelessness with crime and criminal activity. Do folks who are on the street commit crimes and commit criminal activity? Yes, but the overwhelming majority are just trying to make their lives better. So we need to make sure that we're sympathetic and empathetic to their situation. Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Peter and Norm. And this really, the subject of homelessness is really dear to me because when I graduated Santa Clara University, my credit was shot, right? Because the amount of school loans I had to take in order to get that degree. And I wasn't able to find an apartment. So after couch surfing and renting a room in a motel on First Street, at the end I ended up sleeping in my car. I know what it is to feel very cold and sleep at night. So to me, it's definitely the housing first approach. We got to get people off the streets. There are people that are dying. We got to be sympathetic. And yes, let's not stereotype when we hear the word homeless. Because as soon as you hear homeless, a lot of people think of the negative side of people. But also got to bring to attention that we're spending $500 million a year in providing services to the homeless. And it's harder to reach out to them if we're trying to find out where they are to begin with, and they end up in our ERs. So it makes even more sense financially to make sure we put them in housing first scenarios, because if they show up in the ER, it's costing us taxpayers even more money than it would be if they weren't at the warehouse. Thank you.
Homelessness is a serious and complicated issue in our city. Recently, I've been very supportive of taking steps, small and large, to make sure that we can get some people, homeless folks, off the streets. I've been participating in the District 6 Voter Information Transparency Project. Many of you have the handouts in your laps. I've been voting on multiple issues that are actual city council items, many of which address homelessness. I'm proud to have supported on the record the Plaza Hotel in downtown San Jose to create more transitional housing for homeless. Same with additional housing for homeless at Santa Clara Inn. And I'm also pleased with some statewide leadership. Our Senate Pro Tem, Kevin De Leon, has proposed a $2 billion bond to help address homelessness and mental illness. So I'm supportive of all these efforts. I will say I only have a few seconds left. I've studied the Evans Lane issue for a long time, talked to hundreds of neighbors, and I'm not supportive of this particular project because there are a lot of issues that we have to work on in that area as it stands. So.
Research has shown that housing first solutions can work and do work, especially when the services are provided on site for the residents of that new development. What we need to do is collaborate with the county, because there's a clear delineation of services that need to be provided by the county. They are tasked with providing health care, mental health services, and drug and rehabilitation services. And they are tasked with that by the state and given money by the state to do those things in our county. What we need to do as a city is provide safety and sanitation. Unfortunately, in Evans Lane, there's currently a development that an apartment that houses some formerly homeless individuals, and the city has not been meeting its requirements to provide safety and sanitation in that area. Therefore, I do not support adding more to that particular neighborhood because we haven't provided the safety and sanitation that we need to provide as a city.
2 years ago, as a board member with the Willow Glen Neighborhood Association, I helped organize and moderate a panel called The State of Homelessness in San Jose, which included representatives from the city and the county, Valley Med, Homeless Healthcare, Home First, and Supervisor Ken Yeager, as well as a representative from Sacred Heart. Last year, I helped create a business called Cartmo, which is a coffee cart in downtown San Jose that employs men and women transitioning out of homelessness. So I've been in the middle of this for a long time, trying to be a part of the solution. I do support and agree with the housing first approach. It makes it much easier to deliver city services to the folks who need it most. And there are a lot of nonprofit groups that help find money for housing and help find vouchers and help connect homeless men and women with jobs. And really what it comes down to is once you are able to provide housing and jobs and ongoing support, that's what a lot of folks transitioning out of homelessness need in order to get back on their feet.
I'm very lucky that my son had us to come home to after he had 2 tours in Iraq. You know, if not, he could be homeless. He could be one of those homeless veterans. So this is very near and dear to my heart. I also know the instance that lady asked the question is talking about. She's talking about Travis on the Alameda. Travis had been arrested 56 times. Our public safety system was not working. He'd be arrested and then back on the street. So it was a combination of public safety and reaching the outreach services and getting his caseworker notified on what was going on. Once we brought the DA's office into it, once we brought the outreach services into it, Travis is now getting the help he needs, at least we hope so. So there are times when a homeless individual can also be a security. Yes, it's not necessarily a crime, but we also, we have to open our hearts and we have to look at any one of us could be one step away from being homeless. I believe in a homeless first model. I believe in tiny homes. I believe in getting services to people that need them, and we have to work on this. Is going to be a critical issue.
And time is up. Sorry.
Well, it just so happens that out of all the candidates up here, I'm the first one and only one that I know of that's actually written a paper on this, and I have it available for anybody after the meeting if you'd like to hear it or read it. But there is a better way to provide for our homeless people, and the housing first solution is not going to get us there. While it's a very compassionate and noble thing and lofty ideals to do that, one is the cost. We're currently housing 230 homeless people in 3 hotels at a cost of almost $6.5 million a year. It's going to get more, it's going to be worse, and pretty soon, before you know it, we'll be spending more money on housing our homeless than we'll be on our police, fire, and our roads combined. That's not a recipe that's going to work for this city. It's not going to solve the problem. There is a way to solve the problem. It is with legalized camping areas. And if you ask the homeless people themselves, who I have actually spoken with, they would prefer that. Having them being disrupted and taken out of their current camps is a real problem for them. So providing many camps across and throughout the county area, it is a countywide issue, we can get there with providing them the first rung of that ladder, which is a stable place and a safe place for them to occupy
And your
to
time
live.
is up. Thank you. And we have a challenge card from Deb.
Myron, where did you get the $6.5 million per year figure?
That was out of the numbers that were provided on one of the city reports for the both hotels, or the 3 different hotels, and the cost that they're spending on them currently. It's on the city's website. I can dig it up and find it for you and report it to you later.
That's
Any
it.
other challenges? No? Okay.
Okay.
You got plenty of them.
I think they're afraid of me now.
All right, this one comes from Jim in Willow Glen. What is your plan in detail for providing better enforcement of existing traffic laws? San Jose has basically become a lawless place in which to drive because everybody knows the police aren't around to enforce the laws. It's affecting the safety of our families, especially our children, as they try to play in around their houses when we were kids. So that's the question, and I believe we're starting with... Yep.
Well, this is a huge issue, especially given one issue that I hear quite a bit about when I walk in this neighborhood and neighborhoods closer to my home, and that's the Lincoln Avenue road diet. While I'm in favor of that project and the concepts behind it, I do recognize, having grown up and still living 1 block away from it, that traffic and speeding on our side streets is a huge issue. And it's been getting worse primarily because, as we've already pointed out, we hear all the time, we are really short-staffed in our police department. And we're not going to fill it anytime soon. We have 200 vacant positions in our police force right now in the budget but unfortunately, we're not recruiting and retaining enough officers to fill those positions. So what can we do in the near term? We can invest in our community service officer program, get more folks on the street, get more eyes on the street. They can write tickets, they can pull people over. They can't carry a gun, but they can certainly provide that extra layer of enforcement and security so that folks coming down the street see that and hopefully slow down and hopefully don't gun it down our side streets. I do think it's a huge issue, and if we get more revenue into the police force, I would certainly prioritize reinforcing the traffic division and the burglary unit. Thank you.
For a challenge card. So you do now see an increase of traffic? Is that what you're saying on your street? Because before you said there wasn't.
And you have to use a challenge card to respond. So just to be clear, when you challenge a candidate, the candidate can ignore you, or they can use their own challenge card to respond. So
I would never ignore one of my fellow candidates. I will clarify if you'll allow me. Having grown up in Willow Glen, spent 38 years here, I believe that traffic and side street traffic and speeding on our side streets has been an issue since I was born and probably before that. I can remember when Lincoln Avenue was 2 lanes with diagonal parking. I can remember when it was 4 lanes for traffic. I can remember now it's 5 lanes, bikes, cars, and the center turn lane. So I think it's an issue that's ongoing that we need to address outside of the road diet issue, and I think we can do that if we all come together and recognize the need and where the hotspots are and how we can spend our valuable resources addressing that. Thank you.
Okay, so for me, since we brought up the road diet, yes, I'm the only candidate that's against it. It's just a big mess in the surrounding neighborhoods, and I'm a big proponent of making sure we empower neighborhoods. So when we do implement projects like these, everybody is involved, and we get good input from everybody. But to answer the question, I mean, we say we don't have enough police officers to enforce traffic laws. Well, let's get back our department. Let's hire some more police officers dedicated to enforcing our traffic laws. It'd be a great way to generate revenue. And if you're breaking the law and you get hit with the fine, well, that's your job. Thank you.
So back to the question about traffic laws and traffic enforcement. I want you all to know that it'll be my priority as council member to not only rebuild the police force, which I know many of us up here have that as a priority, but I also want to create and foster a great relationship with the police department. I know that they are depleted, they're short-staffed. We're trying to work on that aggressively by recruiting and retaining more officers. But we also, I believe, as a council member, I have a duty to have a great relationship with the local captains, with the rank and file, to know that I could reach out to them and say, hey, by the way, down near Hicks and Pine, there are people flying around that corner. There's not been enforcement there for a few months. Could you guys send one of your guys over there just to check it out and see if anything's happening there? And I think just the presence of police officers more often on our streets of District 6 will have an effect to deter people from breaking the laws down your precious streets. And it's my priority. I've heard it loud and clear from folks while knocking on the doors. And just know that that'll be my goal as council member. Make sure we have a great relationship with the police department.
I do support having more community service officers in the police department to help with certain administrative tasks, and I also think since they're responding to lower priority calls, if we had more community service officers, they could be responding to all of the lower priority calls, which would help revamp the staffing model to get San Jose police officers back out on patrol and making more traffic stops. However, I will say that CSOs cannot currently enforce traffic laws, and in fact, they probably should not be able to enforce traffic laws because traffic stops are one of the most dangerous things that police officers do, and you really need a police officer to be making traffic stops. So we do need to hire more police officers. That's going to take some time because we have a nationwide shortage of police officers. However, I agree with others up here who said that we need to rebuild the police force and we need to work on better morale for the police force, as well as all of the staff members in the city of San Jose.
This is to Dev. Now, you say you want to rebuild the police force, but I believe you're supportive of recent actions to try to bring Measure B back to the voters instead of honoring the settlement that has been made between city leadership and our 11 city unions. We can't move forward building our police force until we have that settlement done. I believe you want to take us backwards to the divisive days of the old Measure B, and I wanted to ask how do you believe we can rebuild the police force if you're supportive of making sure this problem is prolonged?
I support a negotiated agreement, but it needs to go back to the voters because over 70% of us voted for Measure B. And the reason that we voted for Measure B is because we have a huge unfunded pension liability problem. We added $300 million to that unfunded liability last year alone. We do need a negotiated agreement. It does have to have at least the amount of savings that we were going to get with Measure B, and it needs to go back to the voters because we were the ones who said that's what we needed in the first place.
But I also agree. I don't agree. I believe that we need to take action very soon, like yesterday. And the mayor and city council and the city unions came to that settlement, which was actually pretty remarkable, that they could put behind all of that divisiveness of the years, and we've already bled 600 officers the last 10 years. You know, I don't think it'll make it that much longer before we have an additional or a bigger police academy or more police on the streets. I think your approach is flawed.
They could have put it on the June ballot, and they chose not to.
As you can see, the core of the issue is public safety. And what we need to do is improve morale, and we need to get more officers. That's what it comes down to. Technology can only do so much. It's going to take humans to actually correct behavior on the streets when folks are speeding and when folks are putting other pedestrians in harm's way. I think the last person to get a ticket here in San Jose was probably Mayor Reed. So I think we need to change it. I think we need to. I think we need to look at. I think we need to look at that. We need officers to catch people in the act, because that's the behavioral change that we need in order to slow people down.
Without enough public safety officers on the street, we have a free-for-all with traffic, and we are not enforcing traffic because the public safety officers are going after the high crimes, and they don't have the time to go after giving out tickets. So yes, we have to restore the police officers. We have to settle the lawsuits. We need to move forward beyond Measure B, and we need to hire the police officers that we need on the streets because we need a safe city. We have to move forward. Enough. In terms of the road diet, I have a position on the road diet. It's on my website, and it has to do with process. So I wouldn't say I'm the only one that's not against the road diet, but I would say that I think that we advocate for a better process for the road diet so that you don't have the other arterial streets being used as thoroughfares.
I'm the same on the road diet, just by the way, so you're not the only one. But so we talked about police officers. We brought that into it, and traffic and all those things. It's a crisis right now for our city with the size of the million people and the number of officers we have. We are very inadequately protected. And there are some things that we can do quickly if we can get our unions and our management to work together, and that's to allow a policy to have our retirees come back and work for our city. The county sheriff's department does that today. Other departments in other states and other areas are doing that. If we can get another 100 of our officers that are all the guys that are already trained and knew what they were doing, they're just retired, let's bring them back on a part-time basis. We don't have to pay the retirement and the medical because they're already receiving that. It's really another way of letting them subsidize their income. I know there's some issues on labor. They don't like to bring back people that are already there, but it's a way in the current times with the crisis that we have of getting us some real quality officers back on our streets to start protecting us and enforcing the laws that we have.
So this is for Helen. Helen, so you would vote no and stop the road diet and put it back to the lanes back? Is that what you're saying you're going to vote?
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. It's on my website. I want
Yes or no, please?
No, you asked my question. I'm going to
Yes.
give you an answer. It's a community meeting. Before the road diet is made permanent, we need to look at the data. We need to look at the number of traffic accidents. We need to look at the speeding. We need to look at the CO2 emissions. We need to look at the business model.
So Helen, it's been 18 months since the road diet concept first was presented to the public. And I'd say it actually has probably been about closer to 7 years, because there's an official City of San Jose correspondence here from a group that calls itself the Stakeholders for a Safe Green Village, December 2009, calling for bike lanes to be up and down Lincoln Avenue even further than they are now. You're one of the 4 people who signed this letter. Have you changed your mind at all, or over the last 18 months of seeing the process, is there any inclination you might actually support this?
I will restate my position. I worked on a project called the Alameda. It was a 2-year project, and we had a lot of stakeholder meetings. We had a lot of people involved in that process. I may have signed that letter, but that doesn't mean that, you know, I approve what's happened since then. The process is flawed. We need to go back and have a community meeting.
I think we're at Norm, right? On the original question.
The original question, traffic enforcement. I'm the only candidate here who's actually negotiated with the police unions. I negotiated with the sheriff union when I was mayor of Saratoga. I had a great relationship with them. This is the problem. We lost 500 officers. They are focused, the ones that remain are focusing on the violent crime, robbery, et cetera. They don't have troops on the ground to do traffic enforcement. That's the problem. What do you need? You need more troops on the ground. So votes count. If you're for the old Measure B to continue to hash around that, then you're not going to have police officers. If you're not for the new Measure B, you're not going to have more police officers. That's the bottom line. The city is financially strained, if not broken. It's financially underfunded. It needs new revenue streams. It needs to bring people back together again, put old Measure B behind us, bury the hatchet as quickly as possible, and approve Measure B that's coming up for you so we have additional funds. Not going to fix the problem, but we'll add a lot more resources to the situation. That's the solution.
I would like to do a follow-up question to the topic of traffic enforcement across the entire city, and may the answer just be one sentence, if we can try to keep it that. It's going to take a decade to rebuild the police department to a certain level. 200 other cities in the state of California contract with another law enforcement agency, whether it be CHP or sheriff. Do you believe in any way, yes or no, within one sentence, that that's something San Jose should do in the interim period? And I think we'll start with Ruben.
So, like getting CHP to help out to the city of San Jose to enforce the laws, I think that's definitely a good option, but we do need to work with the city of San Jose and see what the current police officers union have to say.
We're looking for a one-sentence answer. So.
Okay, sorry.
And then it goes back this way.
You said CHP and sheriff?
Correct.
Yeah.
Just for traffic enforcement.
I am on the record against that due to concerns about police morale.
I think it's a good idea, and I think we should try everything. If traffic enforcement is really the problem that everyone has said that it is when I am knocking on doors, and that's what I hear, then we should definitely pull out all the stops. But I also think that we should have a timeline on it.
One sentence.
No, I think we need to focus on reinvesting and sticking with our San Jose Police Department and give them the tools that they need to do their job.
I think we need to put Measure B behind us. I think we need to start hiring the police officers and return the respect back to the job.
I think in a crisis, you need to look at all possibilities to really resolve the issue, and so I would support that on a temporary basis, but not on a permanent, ongoing basis, just to get us through the hump until we can actually get enough officers on the road.
I think it'd be a great idea, especially in District 1 and District 6, because they're already patrolling the Burbank area. They're already patrolling big areas around D1 where the sheriff's station already exists. They do a fantastic job already in those areas. I don't see why they can't expand it. And we should negotiate with our current Police Officers Association to do that. I think they'd actually be willing to see this as a positive thing in the short term.
I'm certainly open to exploring it. I'm trying to remember the name of the council member that proposed it, but it's worth looking into. But again, as some of my fellow candidates have noted, we have to do it in concert with our police force, an existing police force, to make sure that it works, and that I would also favor a sunset as well.
This question is rooted in one submitted by Carla from Palm Haven, the Willow Glen Trestle. City Council and staff have chosen to dismantle the structure and install the steel bridge that sits in storage. Proponents believe it is historic and would like to see it saved. Reversing the prior council decision would cost about $3 million out of the District 6 Parks budget. The counter argument is that history is priceless. How would you vote?
I would vote for the future of our trail network. I believe that we already have a bridge that has been purchased with grant funding. We need to complete the Three Creeks Trail. I've been going to those trail workshops for the last 3 or 4 years. I've visited the trestle, and I do know it's nostalgic. it has historic value, but I also know that while that is a key to our past, I think the key to our future and to modernizing our trail network and providing a trail network for all those thousands of residents that now live in North Willow Glen, just past the 280, I think is really important. And I'm opposed to the legal action that's being taken against the city. And that's where I stand. I want to finish the trail. I want to finish that. I want to replace the bridge.
I've knocked on thousands of doors since September when I started campaigning, and I hear more often about the need to connect the trails than I hear about saving the trestle. However, we have a wonderful park called History San Jose where many historic buildings and structures exist already. So I actually think that the trestle could be moved to History San Jose, and we could install the already purchased bridge that is waiting to be installed. And I think that would take less than $3 million to do. So I think there can be a happy medium where we preserve the trestle in a different location, but connect the trails as soon as possible.
The trestle, the trestle has been a roller coaster of a process, and I think the fact that the city of San Jose got sued on the process and lost was a big eye-opener. So I would love to see the opportunity to work with the Friends of the Trestle to see if the money can be raised in order to save it, and would love to have the opportunity to work together, give them a timeline where we can see if something like that could happen.
The trestle is a unique opportunity, and many of the residents surrounding that area want to see it preserved. And why not support the community that wants to raise the funds and do something to retrofit the existing trestle? You would be taking off the top layer, you would leave the piers intact, and you would be connecting the creek. Nothing would change with the trail, but you would have a public place, you would have a beautiful area, and you'd have a piece of history that would become an attraction to San Jose and would be a there that would celebrate how Willow Glen got its start.
I'd support the removal of the trestle and continuing on with the original plan that we had. I do agree that connecting the trails will be more utilized and used by more people and provide more benefits to the community as a whole. So moving forward with that, I think, is an important issue. I like Dev's idea. If you want to save it, we can certainly, there are things that we can do with that, and I think that's an interesting idea. But definitely, I think moving forward with it, let's get it done and move forward and connect the community in a better way.
This is a big mess. It really is. The process, again, is broken. The original project probably was to keep the trestle. Then they got the new bridge in. Now they want to get the trestle gone. And it's really hard to actually find truth here. I'd like to kind of hold back judgment. I want to see what goes on with the court, whether it really does get historic status. If that happens, and then the question's over anyway. But if it doesn't get historic, if it's not a historic structure, then retrofitting, I would be willing to do. I'm a history nut. I love San Jose. I love the history of San Jose. We've torn way too much of our history down. The only caveat here is safety. It has to be safe for the habitat. It has to be safe for the citizens. And there's a lot of confusion there. So if it's safe, then try to keep it. If it's not safe, we've made $1 million mistakes before. I remember a racetrack downtown once upon a time. It's not funny money. It's real serious money, but this is something that you really want to make a forever decision on $3 million. This is a forever decision. So let's take our time on it and do it right. And I'd like to keep it if we can.
Well, I agree with Norm. This has been a mess, and it's not the first time we've seen this type of mess before, where a project moves down the pike without a lot of community input, and suddenly the city is surprised when the community actually wants to have some input. So I'm a big fan of historic preservation. I'm a third-generation San Josean. My great-grandfather moved here and helped start Contadina Cannery, so I really appreciate all of the historic preservation that we need to do in this city to have old right along with the new. And we do need to complete our trail system. There's no doubt there at all. We have a fantastic award-winning trail system. We need to complete it. And in that vein, I would say, why can't we use the new bridge that's sitting in a warehouse somewhere on another trail? I'm sure there's other bridges out there and other creeks that need to be crossed. So let's see if we can reuse that structure and look back at the original consultant report, which said that if we preserve the trestle, as Helen was suggesting, we actually would have saved money and had a beautiful structure that we can all look to and admire and show our children from future generations to let them know a little bit about the history of the place that they live in.
Yeah, like everyone says here, it is a mess that actually could have been avoided. We need to make sure that we have city government that informs the community exactly what's going on. Too many times, a lot of stuff just drops on people without early notification. And this is why everybody needs to make sure that the city comes up with ways to properly inform people what's going on. And usually what happens is by the time you know about it, it's already down the implementation stage. And that's why this got turned into a mess and legal action had to be taken. If we all would have worked together to begin with, we could have found that medium solution that would have worked for everybody. In my career, all I do is help find solutions for a lot of people, including entities in private and public sector. As your councilman, I will make sure if anything like this were to happen, you would know months or years beforehand, right at the initial stage of planning. Thank you.
Okay, yet another Willow Glen resident writes in, we have 2 fruit trees and have yet to harvest any fruit because the squirrels get to it and make an incredible mess in their wake. It is beyond my understanding as to why they are protected, and I'm unaware of any benefit they render. I believe it is past time to bring the squirrels under control through an eradication program. I'm sure that I'm not the first to lodge a complaint against these pests. Your thoughts would be greatly appreciated. I'm not going to have you answer that question, but I just want to give you an idea what you're going to have at about 11 p.m. every night. And I answer, got to talk about sentient beings. Okay, now we're at another lightning round. We'll have Julia do it, and we'll start off, Julia.
All right. Do you support the becoming a sanctuary city? Do you support the city of San Jose becoming a sanctuary city like San Francisco and Los Angeles? Yes or no?
No.
Yes.
Undecided.
Yes or no, Helen? There are rules. This isn't NOM.
No.
No.
Yes, but I would question the language you used to describe it.
Yes.
No.
All right. Do you support the recent city council vote to repeal the will of the voters regarding pension reform? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you support the recent city council vote to repeal the will of the voters regarding pension reform?
There's more than a yes or no to this, but I'm going to say no.
Eh?
I said no.
Yes.
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 No.
Okay. Next question. Do you support the proposed lighted soccer fields at Del Monte Park?
Yes.
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 As a soccer coach, absolutely yes.
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 Did you support the unanimous decision by the Rules Committee chaired by the mayor to extend the duration of the Lincoln Avenue Road diets?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Absolutely, yes.
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 No.
Well, we've reached the end of our questions. We've had, well, we actually, not the end of our questions, but we want to be patient with the audience that's here and our candidates because we don't want to turn it into the initial Republican presidential primaries where they went for 2.5 hours or something like that. But at this time, we're going to go to our closing statements, which are 30 seconds. And that, I believe, it starts with Eric Fong. And before you all say your 30 seconds, I want to say it's a real honor to be on stage with you all. I think you're very motivated and happy and proud of San Jose, and you want to put everything forward, and you put all your friends and family through a lot of trials and tribulations to get you there, but friends and family, it's all worth it. And again, I just want to say the highest admiration for all 8 of the candidates, but starting off with Eric.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed these forums. I appreciate that they've been focused on the issues. Again, my name is Eric Fong. My focus is on maintaining a high quality of life by responding to all of you quickly, rebuilding morale in our police and fire departments, investing in a diverse housing stock, and also alleviating traffic, investing in alternate forms of transportation. I have a very broad coalition of support that includes small business owners, residents, community leaders, organizations, and my most recent endorsement, our State Assembly member, Evan Lowe. Thank you.
My name is Helen Chapman, running for San Jose City Council District 6. I am proud to be endorsed by Supervisor Ken Yeager, who was your council member, and former council member Nancy Ianni. I want to bring the community voice to the City Hall and have your voices heard so that we don't have processes that tie us up for years. We need to be involved in the process. We need to be part of what's going on. I will work hard, as I have for 25 years, and to keep that voice going. Thank you, and I'm happy to earn your vote. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for spending all this time with us and listening to our debates. I appreciate it, and I'm happy to have this kind of input and giving us all an opportunity. Thanks to Pierluigi for putting these on. I think it gives a real eye-opener to all of you to be able to see where we all stand. I do think you have a really good choice with 8 different candidates. I think there's one that stands out that's better. The Mercury News doesn't like me, but I think all of you do. And so I really would look forward to your vote. I'm the first one on the ballot when you go to vote, so just check that first box and don't worry about the other 7.
I'm Norm Klein, and the Mercury News does like me. I'm the only one endorsed by the Mercury News. But also, I'm the only one endorsed by the current Mayor, Sam Liccardo, and the DEA, Jeff Rosen, and the County Assessor, and the former Assemblyperson, Jim Canine, and the Supervisor, Mike Wasserman. I get support from both left and right, Citizens for Fiscal Responsibility, and the Santa Clara County Democratic Club. I'm in the moderate. I'm fiscally conservative, socially liberal. I grew up here. I was born here. I've lived here. I've been involved in business, Lockheed, Apple Computer, my own company. Thank you. Vote for me.
I'm Peter Allen, and the Mercury News thinks I'm tireless, so I'll take that. I'm also one of the only candidates, if not the only candidate, who was born, raised, and educated entirely in District 6, having gone to Willow Glen Elementary, Hoover Middle School, and Bellarmine College Prep, and known a bunch of fine presentation students as well. I'm also one of the few candidates that has experience in leadership at the nonprofit, private, and public sector levels, and I am supported by the most individual donors of any candidate up here. I've only loaned myself, or given myself $1,000. My fellow candidates have loaned or given themselves over $140. So I'm doing this grassroots, and I'm doing this for you. Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you. It's been a true pleasure to come here and experience this. As many of you know, I'm really the only true independent candidate here. The only reason I'm running is to make sure every single one of you has a voice and true representation. As you'll hear from my fellow candidates, now it's making you the issue. I've had an impact on this campaign. From the beginning, everyone said, don't run, you don't have money. You know what? I said, I don't care. I'm a first generation. I'm proud to say I'm first generation American here. I've worked hard to achieve what I've achieved, and I know anybody can too if you really put in the hard work. I'm walking 12 hours a day, or 4, 8, depending if I'm working that day, and I can't even send a mailer, but I'm going to figure a way how to get something to your house. All right, thank you.
Hello?
Hi everyone, my name is Chris Roth, and I'm proud of my long track record of turning listening into action. As president of the Willow Glen Neighborhood Association, I'm proud to have championed pedestrian and bicyclist safety in the downtown Willow Glen Business District. As a longtime volunteer with the South Bay Clean Creeks Coalition, I've pulled thousands of pounds of trash out of the water. And as a chair and a longtime member of the San Jose Library and Early Education Commission, I have fought for increased library hours and resources. I'm proud to have earned the endorsement of Madison Nguyen, the former Vice Mayor of San Jose, as well as Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom. I hope to earn your vote by or on June 7th. Thank you.
Thank you to Pierluigi and Julia for moderating today, and also thank you to all of you for coming. My name is Dev Davis, and I am endorsed by former Mayor Chuck Reed, as well as our Water District Chair, Barbara Keegan, and Michael Snyder, who is a school board member for Campbell Union. I've also been endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce and Citizens for Fiscal Responsibility. I hope I have earned your vote tonight, and if I haven't, please come and see me, and let's have a chat. I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Okay, all join me in a big round of applause for our candidate. Everyone have a fantastic evening. Thank you so much for coming this evening.